Our officials had requested mutual aid and received nearly full reimbursement for FEMA for near immediate restoration. At this point, Rosselló signed on. Not long after, Rosselló demanded Whitefish's ouster and promptly terminated the contract. Whitefish stayed to finish work that included repairing 5 transmission lines, which a company spokesman said was successfully done. Whitefish filed papers in federal court to recover more than $100 million that it was still owed. And so that problem was solved. They finally did request for mutual aid. And the good thing in news is there is some precarious progress. The black and yellow helicopter appeared over a ridge to the south. Beneath was a 35-foot length of pine, a power pole, dangling 100 feet of rope. The pilot, Andrew Chan of Portland, Oregon, a good example of people coming together, helping their fellow Americans out in times of need. I mean, it's a pretty welcome sight around Puerto Rico, and not, unfortunately, a sight that you see very often, especially in the mountainous parts of the country, or of the territory, I should say. And he flew northward along an ascending mountain valley toward a bare outcropping where utility workers were waiting next to a partly trampled barbed wire fence, a downed power pole, and a pink tin-roofed house. The steep gravel and concrete lane leading to the house in San German in western Puerto Rico was too treacherous for a heavy vehicle, which was why Mr. Chan was lifting the load up to the heavily forested valley past the pink house, pivoting 180 degrees, slowly approaching the workers, their hard hats tilted upward, and the aircraft bobbing and pitching slightly in the wind. So Chan lowered the pole as a pole in the dirt as Ron Overby and Brock Stiegel of Greensboro, North Carolina, yanked on guidelines and put the pole in place using a controller in his left hand. Sean disconnected the rope. Chan, whatever you want to say it, disconnected the rope and flew southward again, disappearing over the ridge to pick up a second pole and conducting a string of wire, building things back up and making some kind of progress between them. That's the coolest thing. So, in all, it would take 18 workers from an Army Corps contractor called Power Secure a full week to light up about 30 houses in the unforgiving terrain, according to Michael Mayer, who's a Corps spokesperson. And these were just two of over 41,000 power poles that the Army Corps says it's shipped, using the Pentagon's Defense Logistics Agency, along with 4,545 miles of conducting cable and wires and 36 million repair parts. By November 17th, the New York contingent that had begun powering up citizens in San Juan, Ramos, under pressure over the Whitefish hiring, resigned that day. By early January, the mutual aid paperwork was ironed out. Workers have arrived from Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, Wisconsin, and elsewhere. So they're all coming in. Asha Tribble, who is FEMA's deputy administrator for the region that includes Puerto Rico, said the agency has made unbelievable progress, adding by late April, 78% of the transmission has been energized as we continue to restore PREPA in emergency work to restore power. Still, the shadow of the Stafford Act hangs over the entire effort, and the work done so far, the new lines, like the old ones, will extend and expose ridges to carry power, and by the way, that means high winds, to carry power over the mountains from north to south. High winds, hurricanes, vulnerability, that's a big problem. Despite years of demands from environmental and industrial groups, new solar farms that would wean the island off fossil fuels and more power resilient grids will remain largely unbuilt. The government's bullish figures aside, how far along is the power restoration? With continuing blackouts, nearly 900 temporary generators still on the island. According to congressional testimony, it is hard to gauge the true state of the grid, or how lasting the fixes will be. While things seem to be coming along pretty nicely, according to the most recent reports, even though, as you know, there was a blackout around a month after this is being recorded, so April 20th. Before this has been being recorded, so it was about April 20th. There still is some pretty major work to be done. There has been a lot of good things working, so power is largely restored after one of the Whitefish contractors hit down a power line, so it was a human error that caused that, not any problems with the grid. It still is a little bit problematic. Mistakes by contractors overseen by PREPA have triggered, again, island-wide blackouts. A tree being cut down to clear the way fell into a live line. A contractor left dangling in the mountain wind shorted out. A conductor left dangling in the mountain wind shorted out, and a piece of equipment too close to another line caused another short. In fourth case, a component at the Monastilos substation in San Juan overloaded and caught fire because the system still lacks enough backup lines and generators. Each fault shut down most of the grid. What is undeniable is that the utility trucks from the mainland finally arrive in the neighborhood, and there still is some joy. Well, it looks like just as we check in Puerto Rico, it seems one thing is clear as we are just about out of time here today on this episode. Well, there is basic restoration. There are people there. Work is getting done. It's becoming apparent, as we talked about in the middle of today's episode, there needs to be broader changes to Puerto Rico's power grid, or those people, those FEMA officials, those people who are bringing about mutual aid with reimbursements, they will be right back there the next time a hurricane rolls around, maybe even sooner, to rebuild this whole system over again. There's changes that need to happen. It's not the 1950s anymore, and Puerto Rico, sooner or later, is probably going to have to realize that. This has been Spotlight, produced and hosted by yours truly, Spencer Walsh. We have done research, and today's research and program was brought to you by a report done by the good folks at the New York Times, and we give specific credit to James Glanz and Francis Robles, as well as Todd Heisler, Tim Chafee, and Vida Shastri also as well did a great job in putting together this piece. We also thank for the audio CBS and NBC News, as well as TBS for the full frontal clips. We'll be back next week, shining the spotlight on an issue you need to know more about. This is Spotlight on SWRN.